Hi computer scientists, Mr. Stafford here, and today I'm going to be showing you Unit 2, Lesson 6, Minimizing Errors in Initialization. Before we get started, these lessons correspond with the lesson slides, so make sure you're following along with those so that you know what it's asking you to do. Well, the first one is asking us to run the code and then see what errors that we get. So when we run this code, I see that we're getting an error in the dessert class on line 16, and it says that it can't find the symbol. New quantity equals new quantity minus 1. So what we need to do is go to the dessert class. Right now I'm in the food truck class, and I'm going to flow to line 16, and it says new quantity equals new quantity minus 1. And something that I like that's very helpful is when I click on this variable, I double click it and it highlights the whole variable. We can zoom in and see where new quantity shows up. Now, on line 16, new quantity is being called in the eat method, but where it's been defined is in the parameters in the dessert constructor. So what's happening here is that we are out of scope. New quantity exists in the constructor method, and it only exists from line 4 to line 13 and nowhere else. So that's why we're getting this error. So it's asking us now to change line 16 in dessert.java to quantity equals quantity minus 1. So I'm actually going to copy and paste this to save me some typing. We'll run this again. I'll clear the console and run it again, and we see that we have no more errors. And why that is, I'll double click this again, and we'll see where quantity is being highlighted, and quantity is an instance variable. Your instance variables can be seen throughout your entire class. Okay, let's move on to the next level. And it's saying to run the code to check our prediction. Now again, these correspond with our slides. And what the prediction is asking us to do is take a look at the dessert class one more time and state if you think that it will run with errors, and what do you think. So I'll give you a chance now to pause, take a look at the dessert class, and see if you think that it will run or if it will have any errors. So do that now. You should have made your prediction, and then once we run this, we see that we do have an error. So it tells us in the dessert class on line 29, and it can't find the symbol is valid. So I'm going to flow to line 29. I double click is valid, and I'm in the eat method. And it says if is valid. Now, is valid is not defined within the eat method. So I'm going to flow up to see if I can find it. And again, I see that the isValid method is defined within the dessert constructor. Okay, on line 18, it's declared as a Boolean and used within there. So again, it can only be used, the isValid variable can only be used from line 18 to 26 because that's the scope of it. It is created within this method, the dessert constructor, and it can't be used outside of that constructor. Okay. We'll hit finish. Again, it says run the code. How does it compare to our prediction? So again, we're supposed to take a look at the dessert class, run it, or make a prediction on how it will run, and determine if it will run as we predict. Okay, so I'm going to give you an opportunity to pause the video, make your prediction, and do that now. We'll go ahead and run this now, and go back to my food truck. So we're seeing dessert equals dessert cake equals new dessert, and then minus 1. So what we're taking a look at is looking at this minus 1 and what that argument, or what that actual parameter is, when we go into our dessert class and look at the constructor with a single parameter. That's on line 18, and I'm seeing that the single parameter is supposed to be the quantity. Okay, so if we follow quantity, we look at the Boolean and is valid, and it's being set equal to if the quantity is greater than or equal to 0. Okay, if it's greater than or equal to 0. And if it is greater than or equal to 0, is valid should be true, otherwise it should be false. And so what we're looking at, the way that I first look at this is when, we're setting quantity, and if it's not valid, that's the not symbol, then quantity should be equal to 1. Else, quantity should be equal to quantity. Well, looking down at our printout statement, the quantity that we're getting is 0. But if we look back again at the food truck, our quantity was -1. So that doesn't really make sense at first glance. And why this doesn't make sense is because of how we have defined quantity. So we've declared quantity as an instance variable up at the top, but also as a parameter on line 18. And what's happening is quantity is the value of the instance variable. Okay, the instance variable isn't getting set. The instance variable isn't getting set. And so when you create an instance variable, it's of an int, its default value is 0. Okay. So how we can fix this is if I am referencing an instance variable, like I should be doing here, we need to use the this dot quantity, and also on line 24, this dot quantity. Okay, so our quantity is not valid. We're feeding it a -1, and so what the way that it should work is that if we're not valid, the quantity should be defaulted to just be equal to 1. So let's run this again. And now we see that our quantity is 1 because using the this keyword references our instance variable. Okay, we'll finish that. Once again, they're asking us to run the code and how does it compare to our prediction. So we have another dessert object being created named cake, and we are again feeding it a single parameter of just 1. Take a look at the dessert class, specifically the constructor with only a single parameter starting on line 18, and make a prediction as to what the output should be. I'll give you a chance to pause the video now. All right, when we run this, keep in mind that the parameter that we feed in, the argument that we feed in is 1, in for quantity. So when we run this, I'm seeing that the quantity is still 0, even though this should be a valid quantity. So let's take a look at this one more time. The formal parameter of quantity is declared here. We make a Boolean value is valid equal to if the quantity is greater than or equal to 0, and 1 is greater than or equal to 0. And then we look at the if statement. If it's not valid, the quantity should equal 1. And again, we should be referencing the instance variable named quantity. So I want you to use the this dot keyword, and then we have else quantity equals this dot quantity. And here's the error on line 24. The error is we are referencing the instance variable with this dot quantity. So when we declare an instance variable again as an int int quantity, the default value for quantity, so the default to 0. And so we're saying that quantity equals 0 here. So instead of doing this dot quantity on the right-hand side of the assignment operator, we need to do it on the left-hand side of the operator because we're wanting to set the instance variable equal to our formal parameter. So now when we run this, our quantity is now 1. Okay, we will finish that. Okay. Reading the instructions on the left-hand side, it says Project Mercury Pastries gives a discount of 10% of the total cost if the total cost is at least $25. And for example, if the price is set to $1 and the quantity is 30, the price should be set to 90 cents to reflect that discount because the 10% discount of $1 is 90 cents. It's asking us to import dessert.java from your backpack from a previous lesson. So go to the backpack, tick the dessert Java radio button and import it. Okay, and it says update the constructor with 3 parameters found in the dessert class. So here is my dessert class constructor with 3 parameters. And what I'm asked to do is update it. So what I want to do is update this. And we can look at previous levels on this assignment to get a gauge. But again, we need to check certain conditions. And that condition is that the total cost is at least $25. So I'm going to make a Boolean. Zoom in. And I'm going to call it discount. Okay? And it's going to be equal to. So what I need to check is that the total cost is at least $25. And the way that we find the total cost is by multiplying the new quantity times the price. So I'm going to say new quantity times new price. And I'm going to ask if that's greater than or equal to 25. Okay? We'll start an if statement. And we'll say if I don't get a discount. So if I don't, if not, use the not operator, get that discount, then I'm just going to be charged full price. So we have the price instance variable on line 5. And I'm going to say this dot price is equal to the new price. Okay. Else, we get a discount on that price. This dot price is going to be equal to, I get a 10% off of the new price. So what that would be 90% of that new price that's left over. So I'm going to do new price times 0.9. Okay. The next thing that I need to do is in my constructor, I was already setting the price to new price. Now, if I got a discount, then this would overwrite it. So I'm going to get rid of where I reset that price. And when I run this, the example that they gave me with donuts, if I have 30 donuts at $1, again, I'm going to go back here. Those 30 donuts, each of those donuts was $1. Okay? And now my new price, since the total of 30 donuts at $1 would be $30, which is greater than or equal to 25, is now at 90 cents.